medical school? Sorry. Yeah, so it's, did any of you guys actually finish all of your prerequisites before applying to medical school?
Yeah, I did because, like I said, I applied with my senior year. Everything was pretty much done at that point, so it's pretty straightforward for me.
I think I did as well. I'm not completely sure. I know senior spring was pretty chill. And then I think the fall I'd also like completed all my prereqs. But like junior and senior year did suck. Like it is a lot of work to get them done. But it's also possible. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. So in general, did you do a lot of extracurriculars in your undergrad, or did you mainly focus on taking classes?
I did a good number of extracurricular. I wouldn't say like a ton, but I was very involved in things that I was passionate about. So like they always say, don't just join a bunch of stuff. Like there's always like 500 different like pre-med societies and things, and you don't have to feel like you have to join every single one. Just join the things that you think are meaningful for you. And I was like very involved in a lot of tutoring. So I've always loved teaching. That's why I did a Fulbright teaching, but I did a lot of like teaching. So I created a tutoring program and I did a lot of mentorship. So for those things I was very, very involved in. And still to this day, those things are meaningful for me, and there are things that are still going on and things that I still talk residency applications were things that I was heavily involved in terms of volunteer experiences in college. So I would say that's helpful. Medical schools definitely love volunteer experiences, but more so kind of think about what is your passion for medicine and try to tailor that in, because when you're applying to medical school, you're going to want to have a story. And this is what drew me to medicine. This is why I want to be a doctor. And this is why I was involved in these volunteer experiences. This is why I was involved in these research experiences. So I would say be very reflective about your specific interests and what exactly you want to do in medicine. And I know it's hard so early on, but kind of have an idea so you can kind of link experiences together so it can all form one cohesive story instead of seeming like a lot of very different scattered experiences that don't really seem to fit, because then it kind of just looks like you're checking things off a checklist versus if you say like I'm really interested in like I don't know, ophthalmology, and then you do a bunch of extracurricular like volunteering for like eye training and like getting kids glasses, and you do the eye research. It just makes more sense, and I think it looks a bit better, and it makes it more believable that it's actually something you're passionate about versus just something you did to check off a list.
Does anyone else want to answer and like talk about what they did, like what extracurriculars they did in undergrad?
Yeah, I was gonna just second all that. Like, one really important thing is just your application really wants to make sense. I think it's undergrad is a very tempting time to take on a lot and be doing a lot. Personally, I don't think I did that much. I did like maybe three things, but I spent a lot of time doing those three things, like hours every week, because I genuinely liked being in those places. And I think, like Amira said, that's really important. So I spent a lot of time like organizing for tutorial. I was an organizer. Spent a lot of time at the lab I was working in because it was great being there. Um, Spent a lot of time doing things with Mocha, and a decent amount of time with Mercy Medical, and like I really, yeah, like I can count on my hands the amount of like extracurriculars I had. And it wasn't like this game to balance everything. And again, like Amira said, not having it make sense. It was just things that I very much enjoyed, and that will come through. Like they will ask you in your interviews, and like you'll be forced to, not forced, but you'll have to write about this stuff. And your writing is just that much more compelling when you actually do care about these things. So it is very tempting to like check boxes, but like it's if you're yeah, if you're not really in it, it's gonna show. So.
And for me, I'd say I was on the track team at Hopkins, so most of my time was spent on just running. But I was also part of flock, and like I would volunteer in hospice care, but most of my time just went to track. And I think the important thing is just like Amira and I have said, just like figuring out what you're passionate about and investing your time in that.
So our next question is, what was your favorite shadowing / clinical volunteering experience and why?
Okay, I guess are we like going in the order? It's always me. Actually, okay, that's what we'll do, I guess. Is this in college? I'm assuming clinical experience in college. Okay. Oh goodness, that was so long ago. In terms of shadowing back then, I wanted to be a cardiologist. I'm doing psychiatry actually, but I did. I knew, I even though I was at Maryland, I emailed a cardiologist for the research experience, but then I also shadowed with him, and so I really enjoyed that. I was so it was 2 of my summers I spent doing research with him as well as shadowing in the cardiology outpatient center at Hopkins, and I really enjoyed that. I also did those kind of like volunteering shadowing experiences in other countries, but I think those are kind of problematic now, so I don't know if I should even talk about this. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
I don't know if we're keeping this order, but I'll go ahead. Yeah, I didn't shadow a ton at Hopkins. I did one like 2-week program where they let you just shadow in with the Department of Anesthesiology and Critical Care Medicine and some scrub into some operations. I thought that was cool. That was really cool for like a few days. It was a 2-week program. It didn't need to be that long. Like shadowing is really just like is very passive. You really should not be doing it for that long. So I'm not a huge fan of shadowing. It was a cool experience, but it's not like, ooh, that was the thing. Like I know that I really like doing. So that was really a lot of the motivation for taking a gap year and trying to do something that let me take care of people. So that was my thing. I'm not like shadowing is cool. I really didn't do that much of it. So
Yeah, I also didn't do much shadowing. Yeah, it gets tiring quickly because you're really just standing behind someone and trying not to get in the way. And also, I think just like getting clinical volunteering experience is more worthwhile for you, and like it shows. I think I may be wrong. I don't know. I think it too once like you actually being active. But my favorite experience was doing hospice care or just like volunteering in hospice care. I just like sit down and like talk to people, and that was nice. You really just like hang out.
Yeah, we can keep that order. I think that's a good order. So the next question is, if you could go back and fix one mistake you made during your undergrad / med school years, what would you change?
Dang, I hate this order. One mistake. It's interesting because I actually got asked this question during my Hopkins interview, and like the dean of admissions, Paul White, anything like about my application, I would change, what would I change? And I said I would change my MCAT score because I didn't do so hot on the MCAT. Like I didn't do horrible, but I didn't do that great. Like I definitely didn't do like Hopkins MCAT score. And so I told him I would change that. And he actually just, I respond holistically, which you always hear, but you never really know if programs actually do. So it was really nice to hear directly from the deans of admissions that they actually do look at the applications holistically. And he said, Amira, as long as you showing your application somewhere that you can handle the rigors of medical school, that's all you need. So it's like, if you've shown it maybe through your GPA or through your MCAT or through like you're very involved in something, like showing that you're very dedicated to something, that's all I need. And he's like, I don't expect your entire application to be like, check, perfect everywhere. I just need in some outlet that you've shown that you're really dedicated to medicine. So like that could be like really like for example, like people were asking about like extracurriculars and research, how involved you need to be in everything. I think that really speaks to like show in some way like what you're actually really passionate about, and that will speak volumes. So it's like maybe even if your MCAT score isn't the best, like you've shown that you're really dedicated to like volunteering and advocacy, and I think they'll really look at that. So I think it's okay to not be perfect at everything. So my answer is I wouldn't change anything, and you guys shouldn't beat yourself up about everything because you're human and no one expects you to be perfect. And I had another interview. I remember when I was at Northwestern, I guess I shouldn't be name dropping, but whatever. I was at Northwestern and she tried to trip me up. She was like, "So why is your MCAT score so low?" And I'm like, literally, that was like her first. And I didn't do bad. Like, I did not do bad on my MCAT either, but like, it wasn't like the top scores. And I told, like, I had an answer. Always be prepared. I had an answer. I just said, I took it because the MCAT was changing. I took the old MCAT. I took it right after my second year of college, which isn't the norm. So I hadn't taken a lot of the prerequisites, whatever. So I told her that. And she said it, I think, just to trip me up. And I got in. Like, that was the first school to send me an admission. But I turned them down right away because I'm like, just you asking me that question, I'm kind of already getting like your vibes and feels, and I don't want that. Versus at Hopkins, they specifically told me, like, we don't expect you to be perfect and we're never going to like put that expectation on you. I was like, that's kind of the environment I want to be in. So that was a long answer, but hopefully that's helpful.
I personally like this order because Amira always just kills it first, and I just get to say second that. Yeah, similarly, I think initially, like when I got to Hopkins, it would have been my MCAT. It was just like it wasn't, again, it wasn't bad, but it was like I wanted to do better. This isn't like, the Hopkins score. And I think over time, just being here, like I've internalized that it's really just the most arbitrary metric. As long as you can prove that you can handle this stuff, it is a holistic process. So my answer is actually like, I wish I had done more of what you did, Amir. I wish I went somewhere and spoke Spanish for a long time. So I took all these classes. I'm just like, my conversational capabilities are just not that great. I never really put it into practice. And now I'm here trying to struggle. So with all that being said, I think like an abroad program, just like taking time to not do medicine, like even remotely, like would have been something just personally for me, not even for my application. Again, like I can't stress enough, y'all have so much time to do medicine. Explore your other interests, hold on to them if you can. And yeah, balance is key. That's all I got.
Yeah, I feel like it's already been, everything's already been explained so well. What would I add? I guess I wish I had spent less time like trying to just resume build or do things just to add it to my resume, because then I couldn't even speak well about it in the application process. And it didn't even help me as much as like the things I actually was passionate about and dedicated my time to. And then also it's interesting looking back to like think about like different situations that I was in, and I was like, oh man, I'm not getting to med school. Like, getting a B in chem lab freshman year, you're like, oh, it's over. But you make it in the end. So that's a good thing to keep in mind.
So we have a few questions on the MCAT. Some of the questions are, how did you all prepare for the MCAT? What did you think worked / didn't work? What aspect of it was very difficult? Like what subject was difficult for you? Yeah, so I guess just talking about your MCAT experience.
MCAT exam, I like a little bit zoned out. What was that question?
No. It's a lot of people are just asking about like how you prepared for the MCAT, what you think worked / didn't work, what was most difficult about MCAT preparation, things like that.
Okay, I think I can say I should take this because I took the old MCAT, which is like very different. So I'll let you guys do this one.
So let me know if I miss any of like the particular questions. I took it between my third and fourth year. I dedicated like the summer to it and didn't do much else. I was taking like one other course at the time. And I told myself I would give myself like just like 2.5 months to like pretty much prepare for this test from like maybe late May, took it in August. What worked and what didn't work. First off, I think like in retrospect, I think this is a good place to start. Just literally asking people what they did. I don't know what was going on. I was like, I'm gonna just take this test. I didn't really like talk to people about what they did or what their experience is like. So I just kind of went in blind-ish. And I think like that was just unnecessary. Like definitely reach out to people who've taken it, ask them where they went wrong, what was difficult about it. Um, I personally thought like focus was difficult for me. I took it or studied at home, and that might work for you. That might be where you focus. But I think personally, if there's an environment that you associate with being focused and working, you might want to take your like study or dedicated time there. In retrospect, I probably would have wanted to like study in Baltimore, like at school around Hopkins-ish. I just had like a lot of family and friends at home, lovingly, just kind of like distractions. Um, Another thing was like I took a prep course. I took Kaplan, and that's like hit or miss. I think that's mixed reviews for some people. I thought it was great. Like their textbooks were great. I just don't know that like actually taking the course was that helpful. A lot of the classes were like geared towards doing like questions together and like testing strategies that you could really just learn on your own. And if like you are like is disciplined enough, you can make your own study schedule. That was another thing that was like kind of helpful with that program was just like they did provide a bit of structure if that's something that's difficult for you to kind of create for yourself. But there's tons of resources for that to do that on your own. Do that on your own. And obviously, like it's just less expensive to take a course. There are also other courses that aren't Kaplan. Some are more expensive, some are less expensive. Um, yeah, and also again, in kind of line with not necessarily talking to enough people, there were some resources that I don't think I like utilized early enough. The AAMC has like their own set of resources that you should really prioritize because they make the test. The full length practice exams, everyone kind of knows. But like the question packs and the section banks, like those are kind of really high yield material. The section banks in particular kind of get to those really higher difficulty questions. I think those are kind of good to just kind of for what the worst of the exam has to offer. So I could kind of go on, but I think that's about it for me.
So I took the MCAT the junior year during intersession, and so junior fall I took like reasonably difficult classes, but nothing like too hard. And I would just like spend an hour or so in the morning, just like reviewing over my exam cracker books until it was time for intersession. Then I just went like dedicated studying time and like practice exams. And I know some people like Kaplan. I think Kaplan is a lot of information and really in depth, and I don't like to read that much. So exam crackers was nice because it was like a thinner book and just like more straightforward. Let's see what else. Yeah, so I just did like a bunch of practice questions during the month leading up to the exam, as well as like reviewing what I could and using the AAMC website, like Ike said. And let's see, I had a teammate who actually took the exam on the same day as me. And it was funny because first I'll say that one thing that I wish I had done earlier was take more practice tests. And so one of my teammates, he would take like a practice test every 3 days or something. And I thought that was just absurd. But we ended up both doing well and getting the same score. So like whichever, you can choose whatever path you want to take and still do well. Like, spacing out your practice exams, which I thought was just like easier on like, I know my mental health, or just doing them like back to back. And what else? I think that was all the questions. And then for the cars section, I found that one particularly difficult. And I think what's helpful is just like finding a strategy like through exam crackers or Kaplan or whatever, and just sticking to it, and then you'll improve. But don't try to like switch around. And, yeah.
Thank you. So the next set of questions, I think is about your medical school experience. So, actually we have one more for. Okay, so first off, we can answer, what did you look for when deciding which medical schools to apply to? And also in making your decision, like what factored into your decision?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that you should take into account when, I guess, like first when applying. So it's good to have, so there's the tiers, they say like your dream schools, your like what target schools, and then like safety schools. And I think it's important to apply to a good number of safety schools, a good number of target schools, but also like don't get rid of your dream schools, I talk to so many students who tell me like, oh, I'm not going to apply to Hopkins or Harvard because like there's no way they would. I mean, like, truly, you never know. So I would say don't underestimate yourself, because that was something I was doing. Again, like I didn't have the best MCAT score. So there, I wasn't applying to a lot of the top schools. And just one of my advisors recommended it to me. They're like, don't sell yourself so short, like apply to top schools as well. And it really worked out, and I would have never known if I hadn't applied to those schools. So I think that's important. So like to apply to a good number of schools, don't only apply to numbers, be pretty personal for you, but in terms of if there's a geographic area that is important to you, all my family is in Maryland and Chicago, so I was between Hopkins and University of Chicago because I wanted to be by family. I also wanted to go to a program where how I chose between Hopkins and basically I would say medical school, your first 2 years is going to be the exact same basically everywhere. You're studying from a book. Now that we're in quarantine, you guys are studying from Zoom. I don't even think you guys should be paying, like, not you guys are in medical school yet. Like, first 2 years, your students shouldn't be paying for the medical like bookers. And that's really rare. And just like being in the clinical setting and seeing patients and being at a place like Hopkins, where you're just surrounded by with this amazing clinical excellence. It's frequently rated like #1 or #2 hospital in the country. So I knew I was going to get excellent clinical training here. As well as the research. If you're interested in research, obviously Hopkins has great research as well. And then I knew I was interested in working with disadvantaged populations. That's what all kind of my volunteer experience was as a college student, and was what I wanted to continue in medical school. So I knew I wanted to be in a city that would have a large number of underserved populations, because that's what I wanted my research in. That's what I wanted my clinical experience and my volunteer experience. So I was able to get all of that in Hopkins. So again, it's like being reflective about personal factors of like if you have a significant other and family, and then also finances. Always try to get a good deal, and if they say they don't negotiate, you can always try to negotiate finances.
Surprise, surprise, second all that. I definitely think, yeah, for me, again, when it came down to just personal preferences, I think it's very important to consider like just where, not basically on the school, but like where do you want to be in the world, and what kind of factors go into that. So for me, it was either California, being close to home, or Baltimore, just because I love the city, I love the community here. Yeah, just this is ideally just kind of where I want to work eventually, is the patients I want to serve. So it was going to be one of the two. Um, and at least for me, like this isn't like to shade Hopkins in any way, but like my undergrad experience was just like, Hopkins was a hard place to be sometimes. I think the energy was like at times just like, man, people here really aren't like, I don't want to say too much. People weren't super happy all the time for good reasons. It's a tough place to be. So for me, one thing was just like being among people who genuinely wanted to be at the school they were at, people who were good energy. Yeah, people who were just enthusiastic about what they were doing. And overall, a like mentally sound environment was really important for me. And so when I interviewed at Hopkins, I ran into my TA from neuro lab, who also went to Hopkins undergrad. For the fact that she had to say that is important. I want to be in a place like that because it inspires you to be enthusiastic about your work. So again, the research is important, financing is important, location is important. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I don't have too much to add.
Yeah, they said it well. I have nothing to add.
So another question is, what is a tolerable amount of bad grades you can get?
I'm gonna let y'all have this question. I don't know.
I am not on any admissions boards. I've never been like a student volunteer on a school to school question applicant question you want, but like again, like some schools will look at things more holistically. Um, a poor GPA can be made up by a fantastic set of essays and secondaries, or a fantastic MCAT score, or a fantastic set of extracurricular activities. I do think there are some schools who actually do abide and follow by that holistic sort of assessment. But I definitely don't have like an answer. Like you can get 3 Cs and you can still get into this school. I definitely don't know.
Some other questions. How do you recommend going about getting rec letters for applications?
Yeah, I would say ask people that know you. If you're on a huge class of like 300 people and you've never once, like for example, I had a biochem professor and I took 3 courses with him. I think the first 2 were really big and he didn't really know me. So by the 3rd time I had a class with him, I'm like, okay, I've had so many classes with this guy. I'm gonna ask him for letter recommendation. So in that, when I was starting that class, I knew I was going to ask. So I would say kind of have an idea of who you want to ask beforehand so you can start forming a relationship with them. And then I would go in for what's that thing that you go in and talk to them and ask questions? What's that called? Yeah, office hours. Yes, office hours. I would go into office hours and I would just make up questions. I wouldn't even have questions. I would just make, like, you just want to form a relationship, talk to them. So, and then yeah, I would say just like if there's any professors or like researchers, or like if you're like shadowing with someone, just try to
No, that's
ask.
great. I'm gonna ask another question just so because we're running out of time. How do you deal with imposter
They're
syndrome
like
you
reasonable, just
experienced?
ask.
And
Okay,
another
that's a good answer.
follow-up question was like how do you handle like mental health and wellness as a student?
You guys can go since I answered the last one.
For sure. That is a fantastic question. Um, Again, kind of speaking to just like the space that I was in Hopkins, and knowing that it's something I didn't really want to carry into med school, um, and just kind of like where my interests are in behavioral health and psychiatry. I think just being very privy to where you are, checking in with yourself and being honest with yourself. I was very, very aware of my imposter syndrome when I got to Hopkins. It was like almost immediate. Like, I know what this is. And I was aware that I wasn't like necessarily feeling my best. And so I was very proactive about just kind of making sure I took care of things, because my main thing is like med school is not a joke. Like it's not like this terribly crazy thing, but like if you care about it and you're serious about it, you want to be at your best. And I felt like I wasn't at my best, and I realized like I'm gonna be taking care of people. I gotta take care of myself. So I personally, like, I definitely recommend this to everyone. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether that's you personally, family, friends. If it's like hitting up University Health Services and being like, "Yo, I need a therapist. Like, I just need somebody to talk to about this stuff." Don't be afraid to do that stuff. Um, I know it's not necessarily the conversation you're going to get to have with every classmate, every faculty. So I do hope you hear this more often, but it is far from a sign of weakness. It's just self-assessment and strengths. People know where you're at and be able to understand that you're here to eventually take care of people. You sometimes need to understand that you're going to be your most important lifelong patient too. So don't be afraid to do what you need to do to take care of things. As far as just like dealing with feelings like that and feelings like imposter syndrome, I think it's like a constant sort of. I went into for AMEC this past year. There was like an entire seminar on that too, um, and it's this thing that you're kind of constantly just like building by doing. Confidence builds by doing, and the further you get in your career, I'm a mere second year, so I can't really speak too much. But the further you get, and the more you get to do, the more you realize you are very capable. You are supposed to be here. You are very, very worthy. Those are things that you just kind of have to like work through and constantly remind yourself. And the process, I'm sure, is going to hurt and help with that, but I think it comes with time.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'll just emphasize the importance of like reaching out early. You know, don't wait until you feel like the sky is falling, you feel like everything's going terribly before you ask for help.
So with that, we're going to conclude our panel, and we are so thankful that you guys made time in your busy schedule to meet with us. And we have a few announcements just for our members. Don't forget to check in with the link in the chat, and our freshman rep email has been sent out. So if you're a freshman and you're interested in becoming shadowing our e-board members and learning about our organization, we would highly recommend you sign up for that position. And RMEC, the Regional Medical Education Conference, is happening soon. So we're going to send in an interest form for those who are interested in attending the conference. It's a great way to meet members, to network with people. It's a really great opportunity. So we hope you all join. And lastly, Brittany, if you're on the call, we wanted to take a picture of our gallery or our Instagram. Brittany, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So whoever wants to turn on your camera, feel free to do so. Brittany, you can let us know.
Okay, I'm just waiting because cameras are still coming on.
Okay.
Okay. Just okay. All right, I got it.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think that's all. Thank you again to the panelists for coming and sharing your thoughts. And I hope you all have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, Tempest, you can stop recording.